We're seeing these visuals coming from being shared on social media from inside the Nepal president's private home, where you can see, people running amok and vandalizing, chucking photographs as well. And so here, those visuals are being shared on social media, where you can see crowds have managed to breach inside the Nepal president's private home, and there and you can see them vandalizing property and also picking up pictures and throwing them. So this just gives you a sense of the anger and how now leaders are being targeted, their homes are being targeted there in Nepal, as demands continue from the angry youth that the Prime Minister must step down. For the moment, as Aditya was showing us, massive police presence, security presence outside the parliament, with steps being taken to ensure that at least parliament is not breached, because that really is the symbol of the government. And yesterday we did see that there was some vandalism at parliament. So that is the reason. Huge security cover there, tear gas shells also being lobbed at the crowds there near who are trying to come towards the parliament. Let's go back to Aditya for more. So Aditya, we were just showing visuals of how the president's private home was being vandalized by some handful of youth who managed to get in there. And that's another thing that we've seen today, that many homes of leaders are being targeted, even former Prime Minister Prachanda's home targeted.
That's right, Gargi. The visuals that we are witnessing right now from Nepal, not just from Kathmandu, but from neighboring districts and several other areas, are quite similar to what we saw last year in Bangladesh on the 5th of August or around that time, and also what we saw not very long ago in Sri Lanka. These are similar kinds of uprising where youth had a critical role to play, and apart from that, there was a regime change. There was a seat of power that was completely questioned and compromised, and then it was inevitable for them to actually move out. So this time around, KP Sharma Oli is keeping cards close to his chest. He hasn't come out in media. He has let his information minister do the talking. Yesterday, he did a press conference late night announcing a cabinet committee to investigate the killings and also accepting the home minister's resignation today. The agriculture minister has resigned as well, and NDTV is the only network that has spoken to the information minister, Gurung, in detail about what is happening at this particular stage. But I must tell you that the protesters are not relenting at this stage. Right behind me, as the police presence increases, there's also massive arson that is taking place in different corners. I can see this entire perimeter might be about 1 or 2 kilometers long, and in neighboring areas there are tear gas shells that are still being burst, crowds still being controlled. So in back alleys, in narrow areas around this entire area, there are thousands of people still coming out and converging, and it's a difficult,
Aditya, just
Herculean
stay on
task.
with us. Do stay on with us. Some more news coming in. As we said, the homes of leaders are being targeted today, and now the home of the Nepal energy minister, his house has been set on fire by protesters. You spoke about how this reminds you of the protest that we saw earlier in Sri Lanka, and very similar sort of sentiment, the targeting of leaders taking place. And look at that, celebrations among the youth as the house of the energy minister is targeted and set on fire. I think we can see smoke there coming out of the home there. So celebrations, cheering even, as the home of the energy minister has been set on fire. Before this, we saw visuals of the youth vandalizing the home of Nepal's president, his private home. And even the former Prime Minister Prachanda's home, we believe, has also been targeted. So just take a look at the outpouring of anger among the youth against those who are leading the country, against the Nepalese government. Demands that Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli step down. And yesterday, the government did take that decision to remove that ban on social media sites. However, this is much more than that. That is what many of those we spoke to yesterday had to say. They said it wasn't just to do with the ban on social media apps. It was already anger over corruption in their government that the Nepalese youth are protesting. There was already a planned protest yesterday that was just further ignited, there was further outrage over the social media ban. So it was called the the Gen Z, protest that was taking place. And today as well, for a second day, we're seeing unrest in Nepal, in Kathmandu, in neighboring districts as well. We're told a huge security presence in Kathmandu, especially around the Parliament building area. But now these visuals of the Nepal Energy Minister's house are being set on fire. So those are the big developments that we're bringing you here. 3 ministers have also resigned in Nepal over what took place yesterday, where 19 people lost their lives in the clashes and the violence that took place. Right, let's go back to Aditya for more as he joins us from outside the Parliament building there in Kathmandu. And Aditya, now back to you. Tell us what's happening over there. We just showed visuals of the Energy Minister's house being set on fire, and massive crowds around it, and celebrations and cheering as the house was set on fire.
Well, that's right. This is a similar kind of a protest that was witnessed in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka in many ways, even though we can't blindly say it's exactly similar. But, there are trends that are quite similar. You're seeing burning. You're seeing the seat of democracy being targeted directly. In Bangladesh, you had seen Sheikh Hasina's house being targeted, and the Bangadhu Bhavan as well. In Sri Lanka, similarly, the presidential palace being attacked. Here, outside the Nepal parliament, I can tell you that there is a lot of anger among the youth who are continuing the protest, even though multiple rounds of tear gas have been fired at them. There's been stone pelting, also a lot of ransacking and rioting and arson being reported. Since morning, there have been multiple reports of ransacking the houses of former ministers and top leaders of the government, including that of Gurung, who is the information minister, and apart from that, also at the same time, the other ministers and leaders like Prachanda of the Communist Party. Just to give you a glimpse where I am, you can see here, this is one angle where the protesters have come out and massive security arrangements. If we move a little further, on the other side of the road as well, you can see massive protests, thick black smoke. You can see that tear gas in the air, and then people again, not controlled. They're trying their best to breach the Parliament building, and there are multiple gates of the Parliament building that have been completely surrounded by the security forces. So at this stage, things are pretty volatile here, Gargi. We are waiting for a moment when there could be some kind of a consensus. Doesn't seem like that there would be a consensus. Here you can see protesters now again marching towards the main gate of the Parliament, trying to breach the Parliament. We'll have to wait and watch if they are able to do the same here in Kathmandu. But the security situation seems to be a nightmare for the Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli. Even as he prepares for an all-party meeting, he said he is ready to meet the protesters, but the protesters say that they will not meet him. They want him to resign, and that is the only thing that will end the protest. Will there be a regime change? Will the Prime Minister resign? Will this be the end of the KP Sharma Oli government? Only time will tell. But here, very volatile and dramatic scenes of clashes between the security forces of Nepal and the protesters, mainly youth, who are demanding accountability and transparency. They're saying not just KP Sharma Oli, the Prime Minister, but also apart from that, the entire Parliament needs to resign and set an example of how transparency, accountability and no corruption will be tolerated in this entire belt of the Nepal region. But as of now, the clash is continuing here. Paramilitary preparing multiple layers of cover for the Nepal Parliament, not allowing the protesters to move ahead, but the protesters trying their best to move in. They're trying to destroy and burn public property. You can see the thick black smoke out there in between the alley, between these two major buildings. This is just, 10 steps away from the main boundary wall of the Nepal Parliament. So very dramatic visuals on the second day of these deadly protests out here. Most of the hospitals here, more than 10 hospitals, are completely occupied with more than 500 personnel who are lodged there. At the main gate of the Parliament, there are there is a noise of multiple tear gas fired just now. So things are not okay. The tempers are very, very high, and perhaps these people are waiting for the crowd to get more momentum, more people to arrive at this place, because remember, there's a curfew situation here at Kathmandu, and people have to walk long distances to arrive at this location in the heart of the Kathmandu city here in Nepal. So dramatic visuals, of course, but clashes and very volatile situation. Things getting very, very difficult for KP Sharma Oli government, an untenable kind of a situation where he will have to act in some way or the other, either go through some kind of a dialogue process if there is at all a leader, which doesn't seem the case at this moment, or the other way, the only way unfortunately would be to resign. That will cause a massive embarrassment not just to him and an end to his political career, but also to the Communist Party of Nepal.
Right, as you said, Aditya, we'll have to wait and see what happens in coming days. But for the moment, this is the second day of unrest that we're seeing in Kathmandu. As you can see behind Aditya, massive security arrangement there, the police there, anti-riot gear, but plumes of smoke also, emanating there from between the buildings. So you can tell, that right now there's a huge crowd on the other side trying to push their way towards the Parliament building. We've also been bringing you visuals of how the homes of ministers are being attacked. The energy minister's house was set on fire. That there were the groups who managed to get inside the private house of the president of Nepal as well, and vandalize and smash things there as well. Aditya, one can imagine for the police, it's a bit of a delicate situation given that this is the youth. Already there's so much anger over 19 people losing their lives yesterday in clashes. So the police and, they must be trying to push them back, but really trying not to use any kind of, major force against them, given what happened yesterday and the fact that 19 died. And that has also led to this second day of anger and the youth taking to the streets and expressing their anger against ministers, demanding the Prime Minister step down.
Well, that's right, Gargi. It's a catch-22 situation for the security forces here in Nepal. It's their own brothers, sisters, sons and daughters who are protesting out here. And these security forces have nothing really to do with politics here. But at the same time, they are here to protect the seat of democracy. Nepal is a democracy in the neighborhood of India, which plays a very significant role. And here, people are uprising. People are rising to the power, questioning and saying that why hasn't there been a transparency? Why there has been an elitist attitude? Why the family of the Prime Minister and those in power are enjoying a lavish life while the people who are economically downtrodden do not have jobs, do not have amenities, do not have basic necessities for a living. So here outside the Nepal Parliament, the protests are only increasing. You're seeing massive security deployment, but also on multiple gates there are attempts to breach the parliament. On the main gate, I can continuously hear, tear gas shell being fired by the security forces to control the crowd. Will the crowd be controlled? Will there be much more crowd in the coming hours? Only time will tell. But the entire modus operandi of the students and the youth and the protesters seems to be to breach the parliament in some way and to take over the seat of democracy, to convey a message that KP Sharma Oli is not in control and there needs to be resignation from not just the Prime Minister but the entire parliament. So a very volatile situation out here. Every passing minute is very difficult for the security forces as well as the protesters. You can see in this particular area where again there's massive presence of the security forces, but each passing minute the protesters are coming even closer to the main gate of Kathmandu. And there are many other protesters who have come here. Would you like to tell me that it was being said by the international media that it's about social media. But the reality of the matter is that the protesters are demanding action against corruption of the government. So what are your main demands? Who are the leaders of this protest really?
Can I speak in Hindi?
आप हिंदी में बोलिए बिल्कुल.
हम हिंदी थोड़ा थोड़ा आता है
जी.
कल हिंदी में गलत समाचार सुन रहा है
जी.
ये आंदोलन सोशल मीडिया के बंद के बाद नहीं है. ये तो करप्शन के लिए है. ऑल हिंदी मीडिया
उसके विरुद्ध में बोलने के लिए जो जेनजी युवा है ना, नेपाल के जो जेनजी युवा ने से यो इस देश के लिए, ये देश बचाने के लिए अब हम नहीं करते तो अब इस जन्म में अब कौन करेगा, ये समझ के आंदोलन किया है.
अभी मैंने जो इंफॉर्मेशन मिनिस्टर हैं आपके गुरुंग, उनसे बात की. वो कह रहे हैं कि प्रधानमंत्री केपी शर्मा ओली इस्तीफा नहीं देंगे। आप उस पर क्या रिएक्ट करेंगे, आप उनको क्या बोलेंगे?
केपी ओलीको त म यसलाई नेपालीमा भन्छु, केपी ओलीलाई त यहाँ लिएर आएर मासु निकालेर त्यसको रगत पिएर खान मन सक्यो। त्यस्तो देशद्रोही एउटा जनतालाई मारेर चाहिँ उनीहरू सत्तामा बसेर राज गर्दै जनताको तपाईँको कर असुलेर उनीहरूले त्यसरी गर्न मिल्छ?
Well, clearly there's a strong sentiment against KP Sharma Oli. They are saying that KP Sharma Oli will have to resign, but the entire parliament will have to resign also because of the corruption, because of basic necessities not being given to the youth. And the youth is tired of the false promises that are being done by the KP Sharma Oli communist government here in Nepal. And now is the time that the youth are rising. They're demanding action and they are rising for their own rights. They're saying that this is a part of the democracy. They have a right of expression. They have a right of speaking up against those in power. And that's what they are trying to express. Even though there's violence, even though 19 innocent lives have been lost, many dozens and dozens of others have been injured, some of them in critical condition in hospital. But the youth uprising here in Nepal only going further. Doesn't seem like there's an end to it anytime soon.